Welcome to Mac and Bleu, where we introduce you to who is building Arizona, bringing you the people and businesses that shape the landscape around us. From economic development and developers, underwriters and lenders, architects and engineers, to the very builders and suppliers that bring it all together. Now let's join our hosts, Robert Johnson and JJ Levinsky, aka Mac and Bleu.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Mac and Bleu. I'm JJ Levinsky, your host, president and co-founder of Blue Wave General Contracting. Today, I'm proud to say that I have two very fine guests, Patrick, or Pat Ainsworth, Economic Development Director for the City of Apache Junction, and Bryant Powell, who is the current city manager. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
And no, you don't have to do anything political today. You're not running for office. You just get to be yourselves, right?
Great.
Before we get into it, I'd like to always do a couple things just to let the audience warm up to you, plus make you guys feel less nervous. So, start with you, Bryant. Icebreaker. If you could be in an Olympic sport, what would it be and why?
Well, I would definitely want to be a bodybuilder.
I love it.
Because I never would do it.
Oh, that is such a good answer. Beat that.
He knows my answer already. Professional coffee drinker.
That's not an Olympic sport.
You know what? I'm going to make it an Olympic sport because 4 years at a coffee shop, try me. Just see how much caffeine I can drink in one day. It's my superpower.
For the audience's sake, he's an ex-Illinois guy. So
ouch.
Yeah, there you go,
Ouch,
Pat.
ouch, ouch.
we'll get into the bio shortly, but, geez, what a Chicago answer.
It's all right.
I know, I got to do it. All right, so little bit of, I'm going to go, if you guys can, just a little bit of background about each of you. Pat, if I can start with you, do the whole, born, raised, grew up type, not 2 hours here, but just so people get to know you a little bit more, and like how you eventually got to where you are now with this City of Apache Junction.
Yeah, no problem. So I'll start with current. So I've been with the City of Apache Junction about 6 months now.
Oh, you're still on double secret probation,
Yeah,
Brian.
double probation.
It all depends on how this comes out, right? No.
Did he have the eject button on his?
Yeah, it's right here. It's ready
So,
to go.
and I literally just, when I got out of the car, I went from 44 degrees in September to 104. I'm like, I'm ready for this one. But was born and raised in Illinois, lived there almost my entire life except for grad school in Indiana. And before that, I worked for a few communities outside of O'Hare Airport. So I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, right south of O'Hare in Franklin Park, where you can literally hear the planes, trains, automobiles, and industrial. And
So you're the John Candy protege?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was living, breathing proof. And but I worked for towns such as Wheeling, Illinois, Des Plaines, my hometown, Franklin Park. So got some great experience. I'm both a certified urban planner and I delved a lot in economic
So that was
development.
your educational background?
Yes, urban planning.
Okay. But in your master's though, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and undergrad. I started in architecture, then I realized, oh my gosh, you can go to urban planning, almost do the same thing, and have more time on the weekend. So actually,
How'd
switched
that
over.
work out for you?
Great. I lost a lot of weight when I was in college with going from architecture to urban planning, but another day, another story. But ever since I started in my internships, I just had this aha moment when I was dealing with economic development aspects of urban planning. So I got to know the code side, the project management side, the number side, the relationship building side. And this was a natural fit. I felt like if there was one field in my life, it would be economic development. So here I am.
And what brought you to Arizona though?
So I actually have a lot of family in Arizona. I've got two brothers out here, and it was ever since grad school. Arizona's always kind of been a second home. It was even my aunt coming to ASU in the 70s and early 80s. She lived out here, so I've been visiting since 95, and it just felt natural. As I joke, I forgot the snow and got to relearn how to sweat, but I'm very excited to just be part of this massive amount of growth, this massive amount of exposure. Honest to gosh, the Southwest is the darling portion of the country right now with all this great amount of growth, and I really wanted to be part of it.
Well, good. Before I get into yours, Brian, for the audience's sake, was that an open position before? Did you have a transition in your department, or what was going on?
We had a
there?
transition.
Okay.
So we had current economic development director who retired after 20 years.
Oh.
And so went out and recruited and
Then,
yeah.
I just wanted to put that in
so that was-
perspective so the audience knew what was going on.
He saw how much coffee I drank. I think that's why I got the job.
Squirrel on crack, and then there's Pat.
And then that was Pat, yeah.
It's fine if that's the tagline. Let's make it. No.
Come on now. Brian,
Yes,
if you
sir.
could, same kind of.
So a little different. I grew up in Arizona. I'm a third generation Arizonan. Grew up in Safford, Arizona, Graham County. Lived there, and my parents are school teachers. Have a little public service background. Thought I would be a teacher.
Oh, nice.
In my background, and so had an opportunity to live in Ecuador for a couple of years of my life. Learned Spanish. And while I was there, the transformation of trying to understand the area that I was living in, noticed that the poverty was significant, and noticed that the reliability of lights and the reliability of sewer and the reliability of water was just not reliable in those areas. And how did that happen? And so for me, it started this idea of how does that work, and how do cities and how do governments work together over a long period of time to provide basic services? So that kind of propelled me into my undergraduate, which was in Southern Utah University in Cedar City, and did an undergraduate in Spanish and in political science. And then as I started to get more interested in public finance, I learned this idea of trying to help what we really do shy away from this idea of property tax, this idea of a social contract over generations that allow for water and sewer and those projects. And so that led me to a master's degree at Brigham Young University. I went up there and got an emphasis in local government, did an internship in Orem, Utah, which is one of the communities right there next to Provo. My first job was a budget analyst over in San Antonio, Texas. So I did a few years there, got married. We have 3 children. My next position was in the City of Apache Junction as assistant city manager, and worked. Now I've been there for 22 years, and of which the last 8 as the city manager.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Great story.
Thank you.
All right, so we've had, as we were talking off air, we've had quite a bit of other economic development, both people and organizations and things on this podcast. But I think the unique part, and Apache Junction is a very unique, I call it a LUG. For those of you that don't know what a LUG is, it's an acronym for local unit of government. Is that correct?
That's right.
Municipality, call it what you want.
Yep.
I started coming, just a little, the context of why I want to go down this path is my family, are all snowbirds. So I look back, my grandparents, to their credit, were old cash crop farmers, not affluent at all, almost dirt poor, from rural nowhere Minnesota. I remember their stories of them coming down here as snowbirds in the 40s, to where my mom even did high school down here as a snowbird kid in the late 50s, because she graduated in 61. So I remember in the early 70s as a child, I was coming down and I was tromping all over AJ because that's where my grandparents lived. And I remember the dirt roads, all the way into, when you got to Mesa, you thought you had gone a long way, right?
That's way out there.
And then to get to the Phoenix Zoo was like a day trip, it felt like.
Yeah, way in.
But then when I moved here 10 years ago, and Brian, I asked you if I can say this beforehand, is, AJ, and I hope you don't mind if I use AJ, but AJ kind of had a negative connotation around it. And then I think we've seen that now with all the boom and bustle, AJ is the diamond in the rough in the Phoenix Valley right now. I mean, there's other ones, but AJ is the diamond in the rough. And I know we're going to go into a bunch of things about land use and this and that and those kind of things, and the proximity to the mountains and the proximity to the lake and, some of the county islands and specifically the equestrian. And so I just think, I hope in the hour that we have or less or whatever, that we can really emphasize on the upside of AJ and kind of dispel some of the rumors and the negative connotations. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you for that opportunity, and we look forward to being able to do that here.
So for the audience sake, I know we can't paint a picture on, because some of them are watching, some of them are listening, but I think a lot of people don't realize, help it through words define kind of the boundaries and the uses within AJ, because we talked about it's primarily in a different county than a lot of the rest of the Phoenix Valley.
Yeah. So most of our area, 90 5% of Apache Junction Incorporated, our jurisdiction is east of Meridian Road. There's a little bit of Apache Junction in Maricopa County, but it's all developed, and it's just a small portion.
Right.
And then on the north side is McKellips Road, which is familiar to everyone in the valley. And then on the east side is Mountain View Road, which is really close to the mountain, but not all the way to the mountain. And then to the south side, we actually now go to the 24, State Route 24, and we meet up with Queen Creek, which is where our growth area is. And there's the land ownership is different than jurisdictional boundaries. A lot of folks get that mixed up. But that's kind of our west boundary is Meridian, north McKellips, east is Mountain View, and the south side is the 24.
Do you properly border Gold Canyon? Or how does that work?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the US 60 turns into Old West Highway, and literally right across the street from the Basta Shopping Center is state-owned land in the jurisdiction of Apache Junction. So we have we're 43 square miles large now, and our planning area encompasses even more of that area south and west of Old West Highway.
Okay.
And Gold Canyon's an unincorporated area. It has a postal code. They don't have a mayor city council or anything like that, but we border them. So
So they're really governed then as a county.
So if you're a resident of Gold Canyon, your jurisdictional would be a county supervisor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about that southern, I call it the southern and southeastern expansion or whatever, because Ironwood, right? Everything that's going to be going down.
Right.
Now, how you guys annexed inland, or how, is
That's
all that
right.
been worked on for years, or how is all this expansion that I call in the old the old GM proving grounds and that combination of encroaching where Queen Creek and you guys
Yep.
kind of joined up? How did that all happen?
So I'll take a stab and Patrick fill in the blanks. But yeah, so for many years, 20 years, our general plan, which is a long-term planning area, has been working with our partners. We really do view Mesa, Queen Creek, Pinal County, Maricopa County as the partnership is thinking 50 years down the road. So that area east of Eastmark, east of the proving grounds, was owned by the State Land Department, and the State Land Department is created with a trust to be able to in time when the market's there to sell at the highest and greatest value. And we've been working with the State Land Department. The market finally got ready to that piece, and if you could think of the Phoenix Metro as kind of like I like to think of the infrastructure because infrastructure costs are so expensive, like a balloon as it grows, it can be reachable for the private sector to bring that in. And so they had been working with us over the last 5-7 years post Great Recession, and they were able to get the state land to do some preliminary planning and get it to auction about I don't know, a year and a half ago, and it went up or 2 years ago, went up to auction, and a group called D.R. Horton purchased it, $245 million, and then it took us about a year to work together with them, and we annexed it.
Okay.
And so that gets it to the point where it goes away from like public lands or state land to private, so that we can then work on the water sewer.
And if you said it, I forgot it. How many acres or square miles was
It's
that?
8 square miles. And just to provide some context, I came from a community of 8 square miles, and here we annexed 8 square miles, and eventually, so there's 12,000 homes approved and that will be under construction by D.R. Horton and Brookfield combined in those 4 square miles. That's the developed area. The remaining 4 square miles is what we refer to as the retained area. There will be a few thousand more housing units and up to 9.5 million square feet of industrial, hospitality, employment, et cetera. And that's what's really exciting is we not only are we building this whole area, D.R. Horton and Brookfield are putting in the majority of the infrastructure right now, which is huge, right? So you have all this land, but there's no water rights, there's no infrastructure, and they're being that community partner and installing that in there. Any new user will tap into that infrastructure and they'll pay that fee back to D.R. Horton and Brookfield. But that's what's really exciting about this area. It's not only are we getting the latest, greatest type of development, there's a lot of infrastructure going into this whole area to make the rest of that area feasible for
So you're
development.
using more of a hybrid and kind of a fast track model versus the old traditional way of, we're going to go bond this and then do this and,
Correct. Yeah. So because it's one land ownership, it could be done in bigger amounts.
And the great part too is Brookfield. They are partial land developers and land brokers. They are looking with us as partnerships to see if there is someone interested in a commercial and a hospitality use. We've been working with them on trying to figure out what potential swaths of land in their 2 square miles would be open for such development.
And I'm super excited because they've done developments in other areas of the valley, like Eastmark or Verrado and others, and we plan to head for institutional usage. Now, you're talking about kind of the exciting piece, but also for us, like, where's our next post office going to be? Where's our next schools? Where are our next parks and libraries and police station, fire station? All those are planned in that 4 square miles for
Brian,
that future.
have you seen an evolution and a maturation then with Apache Junction in that regard?
So absolutely.
And I want to get this is where I'm going to get to the negative connotations of, where we had all these mobile home parks or whatever, the snowbirds, and now we're getting into more of a permanent basis where you have different land uses and functions, right?
Absolutely.
And so how have you guys managed that evolution?
So it just has been over time to have a nice change in the marketplace of expectations of what could go there.
Right.
Right. So in the early 70s, we barely became a city in 1978.
Say that again, just for the audience
so
sake.
the folks would know we were not even able to start a process to have a sewer plant or a water plant or to have our own police department until 1978. So we're really
Isn't that amazing?
young.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's a key thing. We were on the outskirts of development. And
Yeah.
you look at other parts of the state and other parts of the country, on the outskirts, you're going to get a variety of uses. And so what I've told developers and brokers alike, it's like, we're a young city. We inherited a lot of unincorporated area, but we're working with those landowners, and over time, we're getting awesome developments. I mean, we have a Ford store, we have a Walmart, we have some great mom and pop coffee shops. So beyond the mobile home communities, we have 43 square miles of great opportunity.
And I always say, like, our winter visitors, they're a base part. We have some that they're great volunteers. They come every winter. They help support our community. They don't bring a lot of crime.
Yeah.
And they help those types of things.
I think that's a big thing is
Yeah.
that this isn't just and shame on me, I didn't mean it in a negative connotation. But again, we're trying to dispel the stereotypes that have typically
Absolutely.
been hovering over AJ in the past. I think I have a bunch of questions, so let's keep going. What about one question that everyone always asks is like arterial development. Okay, so what I mean by that is I think I drive it all the time. I think Main Street Apache Trail you've seen a huge improvement, let's call it that. You're seeing, redevelopment, if you want to call it that, things like that. Describe, though, what is didn't you guys have a big announcement here within the last year and a half of, aren't you doing some things, what I call the old intersection out in
So
East
the junction,
the junction
of Apache Junction is really, we're looking at and hoping to get some density. And Patrick, I want you to talk a little bit about that. But I want to just say, over the last few years, we've noticed intensities of uses for housing, some higher density apartments. We got a Dutch Bros. We got a nice, massive Fry's complex. Maybe that's some of the things you've seen that's helped us put the base. About 8 years ago, the mayor and city council passed a 0.2% sales tax for street and road. So that really improved our road. And now on the median part, and I want you to talk about the but the median part now is getting spruced up. We're getting it cleaned up. We're dealing with some drainage, so that it just looks more improved.
Before you go down that path, again, this is me just spitballing here. Has there, at the state level or you in Mesa, is there ever going to be rail that goes all the way out?
So we work with Mesa. There is that is a old ADOT right away. It's basically a football field, 300 feet. It goes all the way in.
About Maine,
our own Maine,
super wide,
super huge. So it does lend itself perfectly for that to stay that way.
It's probably not sustainable now, but I'm just curious if there's a long-term projection.
Down the road, long time. Yeah, I've talked to Mesa, and they want to just keep bringing it east, and for us to get transit may be our only opportunity someday to have mass transit that way.
I didn't mean to take a tangent because I think anyone that knows Maine, I mean, it's just so flipping wide.
It is huge. It's massive.
Perfect for light rail in the middle, right?
Yep.
Well, we'll probably all be gone, but anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, back to keep going to the junction.
Yeah, so the crux of that is right at the junction to start is a 2,000 acre opportunity zone. So if the audience, I'm sure, is familiar with the opportunity zones as a federal level incentive where you can forego capital gains tax when you invest. We've seen investment. Keystone Phase 1 is well underway. It's about 150, 160 units. We've got other irons in the fire, that one. One particular property owner does own about 70 acres, and they're starting that planning process. We're working with them on a horizontal mixed use, but whether some retail, multifamily here and there. But at the crux of all that is also we have a redevelopment plan area. So we have our growing downtown. It's almost a blank slate. We have some Western, low-lying Western themed developments, but it's unique. We're going to be able to build almost a brand new downtown. So that's what's pretty exciting. So on top of a opportunity zone and a redevelopment plan area, it literally has this great spine, the Apache Trail, with great ADTs that lend itself for downtown development.
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Blue Wave, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Blue Wave to get it done right the first time.
Bunch of questions here. One, back to the OZ. Forgive my ignorance. On the federal level, is there a statute of limitations on that? Have they put a cap on a date?
That's great. I don't know. Yeah.
So the latest is it's all based on census track. So it's a low mod.
Can you go into that? I think the audience would be interested to hear how that works.
So let's say you sell. I'm just going to use a big number. Let's say you sell a development for $100 million. Your capital gains tax is about 15%, is $15 million. You can take that $15 million, invest in a project within an opportunity zone, and keep that investment there for 10 years.
10 years, okay.
You pay no taxes at all. And what we do is we get new development, new jobs, new rental, new housing, and new employment opportunities. And the folks that would have paid that federal level tax don't have to worry about it. And then you also you see that natural return on investment for real estate. So there's a double win for those investors that are looking for those type of projects. So give me a call. I've got plenty of opportunities for opportunity zones.
So is there anything else you want to share about that kind of the rising of the Phoenix, no pun intended, that is going to be your like new downtown, that whole development area?
You know, if I can go a little bit broader,
go.
We are a community of everything. We have equestrian properties. We have big swaths of land along US 60, great for development. We have a lot of state-owned land that's just going to be beckoning for another master plan community. We are a little microcosm of America, if you will, and with amazing views. Like I maintain our visitaj.com website, and I'm just dumbfounded how many points of interest there are outside. I got to get back to my hiking boots from my Boy Scout days.
I love it. The Midwestern Illinois guy. He's drunk loving or punch drunk love or whatever you call it with everything that's AJ. I love it.
Well, and I have to do our travel blocks. I'm like, there's more stuff to do than I have time in a day to go do it.
See, that's good. Well, with all your coffee habits, you get it done.
That is going to be the theme. That's okay though.
Okay, let me keep going. So another one I think everyone wants to know about is. And forgive my ignorance on this too, Bryant and Pat, but when they came out with how they're the 24 and 60 coming up from Gold Canyon with all that rerouting that's going to be planned, how is that going to impact AJ?
So the 24 right now has funding to Ironwood Road. It's been completed. We're working closely with Pinal County. We've also been working with our elected officials it'll impact us significantly. We've got to get the 24 across the canal and over to the 60. Funding, of course, is always an issue.
Is that going to be all state, though?
Well, it's on the state trust land, so we'll have to work with the state trust land, and we'll have to work with ADOT and and also our local governments to be able to see if we could figure out a way to design it and then figure out a way to pay for it. In November, Pinal County, similar to Maricopa County, had a proposition that was for a 0.5-cent sales tax to help fund it east of there. And also the north-south that runs from Mountain View Road south of US 60 towards Coolidge. We call it the Apache Junction to Coolidge. I call it like the 101, 202. It's like our version of 303. It did not pass. And so because of that, we're now back to the planning phase of how we would in Pinal County.
So let me repeat that, Bryant. So for the listeners that know that area, they're still going to have to go down to the Florence Junction then. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct.
So
Yep.
there's not going to be that bypass like was originally planned.
In the next, yep.
At least
No,
not
at
for
least
the
not for the-
foreseeable
yeah,
future. But the 24 is definitely going to go.
The 24 is we don't have a funding source east of the Cap Canal, but we are working with our state legislators and also Pinal County to get some funding to get it east of there. So,
But what about from Ironwood? No, are they going to redo Ironwood?
yes, it's going to be completely redone. And
Okay.
if you were to go down Ironwood and all those, what we would Elliott, Warner, Ray roads
Yep.
will all be completed through this master planning process.
And what's super exciting about the roads, I'm optimistic. It's not if it's going to happen, it's just when it's going to happen, because there are 500,000 people in Pinal County, or about 440,000, and a majority of those folks don't have access to highways, freeways, what have you. So the north-south freeway is actually going to start in Apache Junction in that 10 square mile area that could be another master plan community.
Oh.
So we'll have this great major employment sector. That's why, it's keep it on your radar now. While the master plan community with D.R. Horton and Brookfield is taking shape, there's another one down the road that could be something huge. And actually, this is a good thing that a lot of that highway land is on state-owned land, because you were dealing with that one landowner. And I know there's this new state land commissioner. I can't wait for us to meet her. But this once there's that funding mechanism with the design and the build, watch out. We're really going to be the next epicenter of the East Valley.
So let's go down another path, because my wife will kill me if I don't ask this because she trounces all over your land. That's the equestrian base. Let's just be honest. You guys have such a storied past with the theme of, the true Wild West, equestrian, beautiful properties, beautiful interaction. I mean, it's very. There isn't a day you drive down a street that you don't see people riding horses, and I think you guys should be proud of that connection. But I think there's a misnomer out there. Can you describe that? Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that BLM or state land? That center swath.
That's a square
called north
that's a
of
mile.
Brown or Lost
Right.
Dutchman,
So
right?
From
Go ahead.
Oh, want me to take a stab?
Yeah.
So basically, the mile from Lost Dutchman at Meridian Road all the way up. McKellips, Lost Dutchman, which is Brown to McKellips, is open. It's a BLM and combined state trust
And will
land.
that always be protected?
The BLM piece. And we have a 50-year lease with them on the Public Purpose Act for it to stay open.
Okay.
And it goes all the way eastward from Meridian to Ironwood to Idaho. Once you get to Idaho is Prospector Park, one of our greatest gems. I do sit up there sometimes. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful.
Right.
And I worry when everybody starts to see it. And I want to
Well,
be there.
and that's where I'm
it's
going- that's where I'm
incredible.
going with
It's really
this is-
unique. It's a unique perspective out there.
Again, we're not here to be judge or jury, right?
Yeah.
But there are some inherent beauties that you guys have, and that's your relationship to that is one of them. So you've got other people say, let's develop it all. And then other ones that be like, you protect this, you're probably actually going to increase the value of everything else that is AJ and around it. So I'd be curious, I'm not going to put you on the spot, Brian or Pat, but there's got to be a balance there, I would think, for
Definite balance.
to effectuate that long-term goal.
So everything that's in this north of what we call basically that where we all know in town is called teepee.
Yeah.
In east of the rural Palm area, which is where where the junction is, we call it a rural standard. We purposely want it to be no lights, dark skies, minimal impact, very little curb gutter sidewalks on purpose.
On purpose.
So
you guys have that in your strategic plan?
It's in our strategic plan. It's in our engineering standards.
Okay.
And in addition to that, it's hard to develop up there. Yeah. It's tough to get into the rock. It's hard to get the sewer up there, and it's not cheap.
Right.
But we have all of that land that's the BLM land, and then of course all the Superstition Mountain Wilderness area is a wilderness area, which is the most protected.
So that will probably never be.
Never.
Okay.
Yeah.
And because that was my next question, is everyone says, all those the homes and homesteads that are as far east as you can go, basically. Right. Is it, everyone always asks, well, is that protected? Are they ever going to develop up there? And
so part of that area is unincorporated, but we do literally live and breathe the tagline of respect the rustic roots and embrace the modern touch.
Right.
Because we have one of the best fries in the state, not to be a little bit biased. Everything along 60 and south is going to be new development, but we will absolutely do our part to preserve that equestrian lifestyle. I mean, we have horse stables. We have we're buying the rodeo grounds. I don't know if you've...
Yeah, we're actually been working with the BLM. Yeah, so our rodeo grounds is another another lease with the BLM. They've been great to work with. We've been working through a process so that we could purchase the land, and then that way we could have more control on it. And it's right next to, well, it's a mile east. So there's Idaho Road, which is where Prospector Park is, and then another mile east is Tomahawk, and that's where our rodeo grounds. We're getting closer and closer to purchase so that we can have more events, more activities, and really help manage what's going on up there and keep it in a way, but also keep some excitement and bringing people up there.
No, that's not an if, that's a win, right?
That's a win, yeah.
Okay,
so we're getting
you
really
can openly talk about it.
We are, yeah. We're getting really close to being able to purchase it, and we're really excited.
In that, again, for the audience sake, what's on that strategic plan about how much more can you use that? Is it just going to be more events, more rodeo things, more multi-purpose things? Can you speak to that?
Yes and yes. So
yes,
Lost Dutchman, yeah.
Yes
so,
to the 10th power.
Yeah. So thank you. The Lost Dutchman Days parade and rodeo days are just overwhelmed, and we need more space, and we'd like to do more of those, that type of event. But in addition to that, we could actually have some music or maybe some other types of gatherings that would be concerts in the park. We have a little park, but it's not big enough,
right.
And so whether we have Festival of the Superstitions in October, November, or Blues and Blues Festival, they're just getting so big. Our little community is growing, and those would be the types of things I envision, and the council has talked about for their strategic thinking.
Talk about, for a moment, again, I've watched the maturation of this, about how you've centralized back your government offices.
Yep.
Right at, I call it university and whatever.
Yep, it is.
Because it seems like now you've got everything kind of, feels like a true campus now again. And that just didn't happen overnight, Brian.
Yeah.
Look at his smile.
It's one of my favorite things. Yeah, to talk about one of my passions. So prior councils of 78, took a while to get going, 88. Well, about mid-90s, the mayor and council decided to tax themselves because they were just all over you may remember, we were all over, and said we need to have our own city hall. And you don't build city halls, that often. But our community was so supportive. It was a combination of, hey, we will get this done. We will pay it off in 7 years. Give us the trust. If you do that, and that was already kind of in the works when I got there, late 90s. And 02, 03, we went out to bid for our city hall, municipal court, and we brought it all together into one 40,000-ish square foot building. We now have a multi-generational recreation center where we house a bunch of parks and rec programs. Our library is right there. So that's that campus feel. We've doubled it in size. Next up, we're going to be improving the rec center again, so we can bring in some park offices and some storage and some more programming. That has all been something that, in 7-8 years, we paid it off. It's all paid off, and now we're enjoying the
Did you not expand your judicial?
We did as well. Thank you. Thank you for that. So our
is that, forgive my ignorance again, is that judicial part only you, or is that also Pinal?
Just us.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if they're... if they were because of the concentration of residents, I didn't know how that worked.
Yep. So just across the street on University Superstition, in our neck of the woods, is the Pinal County complex, and they have their own judicial system.
Got it.
And then we have worked with them on a retention basin to put in a dog park. So we got to kill two birds with one stone recently, and we got our very first off-leash dog park that's fenced in, and it's just a huge hit. We see so many families out there, and it's on their land, but we operate it. And so we didn't have to buy the land, but it's all county. To me, it's all county residents. We're all the same.
So is it an IGA, basically?
Okay. Yeah, it was an intergovernmental agreement with Pinal County.
Thanks for defining the acronym.
That was great.
All of us cronies know.
It used to be, whenever it stormed, it would be a retention basin that held water way too long, and now it flows properly and doesn't retain it, and now it's a nice retention basin for all of our pet friends. Is
the Goldfield mining town, that whole little thing, is that outside your jurisdiction? Okay, I didn't know.
Just by a couple blocks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think everyone always wants to know, is that AJ or is that out?
Hopefully they'll
they think it's Tortilla Flats almost.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's one of our areas of interest, right? And we're super proud of it, and it just happens to be outside of our jurisdiction.
I mean, it's a great draw. Let's not lie.
Huge.
That road just gets used a ton.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to your western boundary. I'm going to go down I think it's kind of sensitive subject, but I think it needs to be talked about. We bring it up with a lot of other economic development people, that is the gentrification and protection of affordable housing, which they're at a dichotomy when you think about it, right? So, I've watched where your Mesa Border seems like developers coming in, whether right, wrong, or indifferent, they're either raising these things, repurposing them, rezoning, replatting, those kind of things, and putting up sometimes single-family homes, sometimes more of these condo apartment complex type things. What can you guys speak to both the protection of gentrification and also providing the constituents a better opportunity? Because I it's hard, right? You can't appease everyone.
Issue, yeah, it's a lot of trade-offs.
So feel free.
The good news is we have a whole spectrum of attainable housing going on right now. So D.R. Horton, they're at $399, and I know, being a house hunter myself, that if I'm looking in the East Central Valley or Central Valley, it's $500,000.
Right.
We have build-to-rent, we have affordable housing, we have a good amount of manufactured home and mobile homes. So we really do have a full spectrum of attainable housing.
Is the build-to-rent the same as single-family rentals?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what
Sorry. Good catch on the.
Because we have a couple of first new ones
markets,
coming that way.
just
right.
And let's be honest, it's you can listen to Wall Street. That's one thing, but you have to look at it through different prisms and perspectives of, is the build to rent sustainable? And I think a lot of us are still in that petri dish of finding out,
trying to scratch our head. If
what's really going to be what's going to be the long term play there.
Yeah.
So keep going, Pat.
Yeah, and what's very unique about us, we're right at the doorstep of Maricopa County. Like you said, Meridian is the boundary line, and we're a little bit more affordable. Our land's a little bit more affordable. We're easy to work with. We've got a lot of great units in the pipeline south of us, and in the core of Apache Junction. Core meaning like our existing area. We still have some single family. We do have those $1 million homes with $1 million views, but we do have a decent amount of entry level build to rent homes that may need just a little bit of TLC that can get your foot in the door, and then brand new construction under $400,000. So we are definitely doing our part. In the words of Brian, sorry to take your words, we're doing our part to help with that attainable housing for sure.
What about the multifamily? Have you seen a big uptick in multifamily?
Yeah, well, absolutely. So we have now a couple projects in the process to get some more apartments, multifamily, some higher densities that would allow for some more affordability. I think about when I was, getting going in adult life and how nice it was to have a place that was affordable, right? It's important. I mean, I feel for everyone trying to. I have 20s, early 20s, getting ready to head off in life, and one of my greatest worries is where are we all going to live? Where are you going to live? And how nice it was to have a good apartment. To was safe. One of them was in San Antonio, one was in Gilbert, and it was affordable. It wasn't outrageous. And I think as local government officials, we have to look at that. We have to be very serious and pensive about how we can keep that affordability mark still there and not have it lost. And it's something our city council is really worried about, whether we call it workforce housing, whether we call it affordable housing. It just needs to be a supply of a place to have a safe, quality home to live in.
Right.
Yeah.
Putting you on the spot, here's always a tough question that you guys get, because there's been a number of municipalities that have gotten this wrong. I'm not saying you are, but the thing is being responsible for your budgets. Expansion and growth is easy when everyone's doing it, right?
Yeah.
But you brought up the greatest point, Bryant, is there's so much data out there that shows that a lot of this is not sustainable. You just can't go extend 800 miles of sewer, water, roads, and without a tax base that can support it long term. You just can't. You can't keep giving OZ type credits. You can't give TIF financing. It just isn't sustainable. How are you guys able to combat that, to have a balance, in your coffers?
Yeah. So for many years, our councils, we have to balance it, and it has to be. We have a policy of growth paying for itself, and we measure, if you will, current levels of service. And so the state law allows for us to apply that our new residents will help pay for some of these same amenities that we have currently. And the standard is, number of park acreage.
Right.
And we apply that, and we call them in Arizona development fees. In some states, they're called impact fees. Now, we have to balance that, but that's a rational nexus on what the new development can afford. At the same time, with water, sewer, roads, and working with SRP, we try to balance how we have that connectivity. In a new area, the new residents will have, in essence, a new property tax will help pay that off over time. I call it intergenerational equity. So over 30 years, 40 years, helping pay that off. And so that's kind of our approach to do it. We don't seem to want in our community and have seen that growth for growth's sake is not sustainable.
Yeah.
We want quality. We want our unique stamp to continue, our Western lifestyle to continue. And so sometimes that is a little slower.
Right.
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Blue Wave, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Blue Wave to get it done right the first time.
We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the people that I kind of not purposely shunned, but shunned at the beginning of the podcast, which is our snowbirds, our transplants, our RV people, and the people that just want to come down and enjoy our beautiful sunshine.
Yeah.
How are you able to accommodate and keep a spot near and dear in AJ's legacy with that? I'm sure it's not easy, but how are you able to manage that, you guys?
So there is a local organization, a nonprofit, Winter Visitors organization, and they have a big party at Barlean's every year at the beginning in November. It's a hoot, and we get invited. Our elected officials can go, and of course our police and fire and everybody, and we welcome every year. We don't we want to help them feel comfortable. And then we work with our communication plan and all of our departments. Now, of course, we're city center focused services. So we're very proactive and very accustomed to, for libraries. So I got to go to at the end of the winter season, which just happened last week. Our great library did a thank you to all of our volunteers.
Oh, yeah.
And we're very blessed to have so many come from other areas of the country that just know how powerful that is, and they help us out. We have an animal control facility, same thing. Yeah. Police department, same thing. So those are the kind of things we do. I don't know, Pat, if you've seen any other.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we recognize the winter residents help build our city. They've added vitality. They've kept our restaurants busy 6+ months of the year, and I mean, I saw that when we were volunteering at the parade. I saw even the golden dancing grannies having a spot. Like, they become part of our community. We've definitely embraced that. The chamber president is the owner of or the manager of the Road Haven. So we really embrace that to the point.
Which is one of our biggest winter visitor places.
Right. They got a 9-hole golf course, 2 restaurants. They even have a ceramic studio. At one point, I'm going to get on up there and check it out myself.
Oh, they've got a workout room where I go work on my bodybuilding, everything. I mean, it's its own zip code, man. It's
next to the coffee drinking Olympic training facility.
They have everything there in there. Its own community.
And that's the thing I was mentioning. Like, we had a lot of mobile home communities before we became a city, and we've annexed it. So we inherited that. So it has become part of our culture. And it's not going to be a tale of 2 cities. It's a tale of integrated neighborhoods, if you will. And they have identities that we definitely recognize.
I think that's important to acknowledge because I don't know if you early on at the inception of Mac and Blue, I had a guy by the name of Charles Marone. Chuck Marone wrote he calls strong towns. There's a community, a bunch of engineers that got together and said, the way we've been engineering is wrong for 30 years, right? And so, right, wrong, or indifferent, one of the sustainable things that they talk about is putting themselves in your shoes of, we've got to come up with better ways to have growth, that is sustainable and things. And we have to manage it for multi-generational purposes. We can't just think like a 5-year myopic plan, right? And so, you guys have I think you have tremendous upside, but you also have a larger responsibility than some of the other municipalities because of that tradition and that past.
So remember in 1979, we became there was already, probably 100, a big chunk of folks that were already here post-World War II. We have 2 veterans organizations. I don't know a city our size in the state that have such strong veterans groups. They come from that history. They're strong-rooted and just great people. Same with our folks that keep coming back. We have to recognize that and view them as, and we do. We love them.
I have one other.
Yeah.
I get this question, and being a contractor, is I'm calling it your Mesa Border, more the southern part. As Mesa has expanded and done all with the growth of the industrial, just the high demand of industrial here. And let's be honest, Mesa was one of the only ones that had land left to accommodate the East Valley side of the industrial equation versus your counterparts on the west side. Do you guys have land adjacent to Mesa that can accommodate industrial growth as well?
Yeah. So part of that 8 square miles that we were talking about is pre-planned, that master plan community. What Brian's and the team that took over it, or that took care of it before I got here, kind of helped me pave the way, or help pave the way for this to happen. Where if we get a big project from the state lead, what we call an RFI, request for information, we have land zoned already for industrial. So up to 9.5 million square feet for everywhere from baseline all the way to SR 24. And that's, again, what's great about D.R. Horton and Brookfield putting in a lot of that infrastructure that we've planned for it. We know what the water capacities and the wastewater capacities are going to be. We know what the circulations are. We have a transportation plan already. So yes, it is state-owned land, but we've gone through that process already. So that's what's great. We built those relationships with the state. We have this planning and zoning in place. So when anyone comes to me like, what's the best tagline for, I'm sorry, I'm big on taglines if you can't tell, it's like, we got land and we got it zoned already in place. And I think that's music to developers' ears. It's like we've gone through this multi-year process. Just bring your shovels and let's start digging.
One of the other areas that we were working closely with just got the announcements from Queen Creek on the LG. And that's on the south side, a little further south with the 24, and that's just right there as well. So those two areas are, and in addition, in our long term, like we mentioned, we're 50 years thinking out, and that north-south freeway employment corridors can help on lots of matters in terms of our commute sheds, where a big chunk of us have to get on the 60 and come in. Well, not everybody. Another utility we haven't talked a lot about is broadband, water, sewer, roads, and broadband. That ability to have a new community where that high level of connectivity where people can live and work right there, and then heck, later in the afternoon go to Canyon Lake, right?
Yeah,
and enjoy a hike to Flatiron or a
portion. Yeah. The broadband was an interesting one because Kerry was on here with I'm horrible with acronyms. Was it AECD? The Arizona Economic Development.
Yeah, AED.
Yep. Yeah, and I was shocked when she brought up the math about it wasn't just all the regular infrastructure. It was the broadband. I was really naive and stumbled by how much or how behind some of the communities were in that regard.
A lot of progress has been made in the last 5 years. Since I've been here, I've been in a couple seminars hearing about the advancement of broadband throughout the state, and Arizona is doing a wonderful job of really advancing.
Is there a lot of federal initiative on that?
I think so. I know there's a lot of federal or state push, and I'm happy to say broadband is coming and has been in Apache Junction. Cox Internet is working on fiber optics right now on Apache Trail, which is one of our major commercial corridors, and a lot of those businesses already have reached out. As a matter of fact, we did a 2023 business survey. The #1 response for requests for infrastructure, internet. So it's like we were checking that box as they were responding. We just wanted to know what else is going on. So it's great to see a lot of these businesses will be served with high-speed internet soon.
Come to that point where I have to ask you the tough question. What did I forget to ask you?
Can you go to him first?
Let the coffee kick in for a while.
Let him kick in. I was just thinking about one little area that I wanted to bring up is the work that we do with 2 groups and then with our city partners is really neat to see over the years that I've been there. And that's over at the Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport.
Right.
And the connectivity. Apache Junction made a strategic decision to be a member of the Airport Authority.
Oh.
So we're on the authority. We've had several mayors now over a decade working with Mesa, Queen Creek, and the Gila River Community, Indian Community, Phoenix, and Gilbert are the board members, and we're on that board with them, and we work and think about flight paths and how we're going to that process. In addition, we're also a member of East Valley Partnership and Pinal Partnership. It's a business and governmental groups that work together on transportation and air quality and environmental issues so that we can continue the great quality of life in Arizona. Thinking ahead, we haven't talked too much about water. I don't know if we want to talk about that, but our ability to be a part of those groups has been significant in Apache Junction's history. And I think when we 50 years from now look back, we'll say that was a really smart decision to be a part of
the water issue has naturally come up time and time again, and everyone's got concerns of the math supporting when you take out so much ag and put it back in development. Is this math skewed? And now you're hearing, let's be honest, some of the reports from the west side, you've seen some of the, we all know the stories of, well, if they make that private versus public, you're dealing with like the MCORs and things like that. So go ahead.
And
Pat.
real quick to the water, I always tout our current Superstition Mountain CFD is 100% sustainable. And forgive me on all the factoids. I think it's like 1.3 million gallons gets treated on a daily basis. We put that back into the groundwater. And the new Superstition Vistas, the D.R. Horton and Brookfield site, they're building, I think, a 500,000 square foot underground container for purple water to be serving the landscaping. Right. So we're trying to be 100% sustainable in that water infrastructure. Arizona does lead the way in the nation for conservation of water. But as part of this new development, we're always looking to...
Yeah, I think all of you guys have done, as a contractor, when we see all the reclaimed water things that we have to do, naturally the developers are paying for that. Well, they kind of are, you know what I mean?
Right.
But the co-initiatives, if you want to call it that, is what's kind of profound.
Yeah, so in this new area, we're going to have no turf, not going to be allowed on the front yards. We have really high goals on the per capita use of water, so that we can use the precious amount we have. But we're also working with our partners at Salt River Project on some thoughts this year of all years. We're now seeing all of the salt in the Verde rivers overflow.
Why aren't you capturing that
Why aren't you
water?
capturing that overflow, especially on the Verde? And so there's a project that we're a part of with other municipalities in the valley to raise Bartlett Dam, to do it. I call it our legacy. What have we been given but Roosevelt Dam for our grandmas and grandmas? Yeah. Now it's ours. And possibly that idea of working with the federal government, Rural Reclamation, to get Bartlett to be bigger could preserve that. Technology related to direct and indirect potable reuse, using some of this wastewater in a better way, are other initiatives, and working with our partners in our Native American communities. Mesa's done some great things with the transfer of water credits. But whatever the part we have to be very, very be aware of how much we use.
I'm going to bring it up again because I was blindsided by the technology early on. I think it was last summer on the podcast we had some folks from Maricopa area where I was flabbergasted with the math about how much the treated can be re-injected into the aquifer, and the aquifers are almost full because, and again, this is going to sound wrong, but our wasteful flood irrigation on the farming was just that wasteful. I know people have water rights and all that, and that's kind of a sensitive subject, but there are better ways to do that. If you're still going to have agriculture, there's better ways to do it. Right. And that balance is what we're all trying to do.
Well, if you know anyone in hydroponics, I'd love to chat with them. We've got land for it.
All right. Was there anything else? Or I got to come back to you.
Those are my two, yeah.
Okay. So one of the favorite words I have, is taglines and words, is underserved. We probably have some of the best natural features in the Phoenix metro area with Superstition Mountain, Canyon Lake, Saguaro Lake, and we are extremely underserved with hospitality. If it's even in our economic development strategic plan to try and do a dude ranch.
Is this your commercial point? Go ahead. You can say it.
As natural as I am, I'm always a commercial. Sorry to put it that way. But, at the end of the day, we just had the LPGA right here. Apparently, the estimated attendance was 35,000 people. Where they had to go? They probably had to go to Tempe, Phoenix. We have so much land available for equestrian hospitality, for actual hospitality, and we're underserved for retail. Our whole retail trade area is about 100,000 because people from Gold Canyon go to our Walmart. People from the unincorporated AJ area go to our downtown to eat at Handlebar.
Well, you were talking about your fries. I can't tell you how many people comment about that fries. Right?
It's one of the top in the state, actually, by sales. I don't know the exact numbers. I won't say the exact numbers, but it's phenomenal. I go there and I'm just dumbfounded. There's a wine bar in the middle of in the fries. Now that's a weekend thing, right? Not a during the lunch thing. But we have certainly been a community that people probably may have looked over, but give us another look around. And I'm happily dumbfounded by how many people are really paying attention to us. Whether it's just keeping us on our radar, we'll come back in a couple months. But at the end of the day, we are truly going to be that new epicenter of the East Valley. And I always tell people, get in now before land prices go up.
And not to put you on the spot, Patrick, but in that regard, because there's a lot of this audience that is, capital development people. and maybe you haven't had enough time in your new position, but what are you doing from a strategic initiative to offer more insight and opportunities into that? Are you hosting lunch and learns or digital type formats or what? Because this is a baited question. I'm like, hey, you got to make yourself exposed to this.
No, by all means, taking the bait. We are building our this department. My predecessor did a great job. She, like you said, she's with the department several years. We're going to do some new marketing. We're going to be doing some things out of the box. We have a brand new business suggestion box. So if you had an idea for maybe a motorcycle place or a bakery, you put in 5 bits of information on our website, it sends me a lead. And we already got a lead just because we posted it on social media. So we're going to get heavily handed in social media. We are revamping some of our redevelopment plan areas. It's in our economic development strategic plan recommendation to combine our 2 RDAs to get a new fresh one in our downtown and along Apache Trail. So that's going to be coming up in the near future. So
on that, any idea on time frame?
I'm sorry? Probably within a year or less. So we put it in our budget. City Council has to approve the budget.
Right.
So we want to make sure we're mindful of the taxpayer dollars. And that'll be a study that'll be out there.
Well, that's a novel concept. Good job.
Yeah.
Start there.
That's music to every taxpayer's ears.
Absolutely.
Honestly, gosh.
Before we start. Yeah.
If the City Council doesn't see it, we'll figure out something. We'll put it at bay. But, look, we're a city. We're happy to work with you. We're a city to help you figure things out. We're a city that we're going to do our best to put the tools in place to make things financially feasible. Because I get it. We're a little bit on the outskirts. Land's getting a little bit more pricey. Construction is just going through the roof. You could probably talk more about that than me. But at the end of the day, we're going to put those long-term tools in place. We're going to be sustainable. As a matter of fact, I think we're going to be looking at updating our zoning code through an RFP process soon. So we get it. We want to be respectful of what you guys do. We want to be respectful of what our city council does. And we also want to be respectful of what the residents want. And I can tell you what's going on in the corner of Walmart at Superstition, Apache Trail and somewhere else. Well, that was like the number one question out there. But the point I'm getting at is like the residents, they're definitely cognizant of what's going on in the community. So we want to bring them awesome stuff as well.
Great. All right, now we get to the fun part. And then we'll wrap it up. This is rapid fire, so we'll go every other. This is where you get exposed, where the audience will really be able to zing you on LinkedIn and make fun of you. I'm starting with you, Brian.
Yes, sir.
What is something you are great at cooking? Don't say mac and cheese either.
The theme mac and blue, mac and cheese.
No, I didn't even think of that, but go ahead.
Yeah, so I love breakfast as a dad to do that for my kids. And so I'll do elbow skewers, I'll do breakfast burritos, all kinds of easy stuff like that.
He's giving out his address and Twitter account because everyone's going to show up at his house on Sunday morning now.
Come on. Yeah, I'm not afraid.
All right. Patrick, what's the best advice you've ever been given?
Best piece of advice?
Yep.
This too shall pass. So if I'm having a bad day, I'm like, you know what? I gotta steer clear and just go with the flow. If things are great, I love for things to stay great all the time, but I get it. It's not always going to happen. But this too shall pass. I think it's on my original Facebook account too for life quotes. So, good question.
Good one. All right, back to you, Ryan. If you could eliminate one thing from your daily routine, what would it be and why?
Well, obviously working out, because whenever you do, you get hurt. So
this is his journey to bodybuilding, by the way.
Yes, no.
I see the tagline: workout and coffee.
All right, back to you, Patrick. What would you like to do when you retire?
Well, I can't say be a snowbird because I'm here already, right? Honest to gosh, I've thought about this. I don't think as crazy as it sounds, I don't think I ever want to retire. I get up every morning. I get super excited. This poor guy has to put up with my cheerleading all the day. But it's just, I've been working straight through since 16. I've worked 3 jobs in college. So
Any of you coffee people out there need an endorsement? Here is your ambassador of Quan. So maybe you can strike a IGA with the with AJ to have a co-coffee endorsement.
Well, until my doctor's like cut the coffee out. But
no. Your energy's infectious.
Honestly, so the pure answer, I think I finally got my passport last year. That was a miraculous thing because I've never traveled outside the country, but I do see wanting to be a world traveler later in life.
All right, back to you, Brian. What skill do you think everyone should have?
Listening.
Huh?
Listening.
You say something?
Best comeback ever.
All right, we'll leave it. Yeah.
Let's listen a little bit more.
Great one. Thank you. And that has been I wouldn't say it's been a popular answer, but it's a very, let's say, appropriate answer.
Okay.
Good job. This one's for both of you. What are you reading or listening to right now?
Your podcast.
Oh, God. Oh, jeez. Don't be patronizing. Come on.
My last position, it was an hour drive, so I did a lot of Audible. One of the last books I had was Dr. Steve Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Oh, yeah. What a life transition book. I then learned he passed away in 2013. I had so many burning questions, but I'm sure his sons and his kids would happily answer if I ever got the opportunity.
Very popular. I think I've read and listened to that up to 4 times now. So I will tell you will, when you mature and get old like me, you'll read it again and again. How about you, Brian?
So I'm going to get serious now, and you're going to think I'm not. But really, right now, it popped up on our way over here because of the Bluetooth, right? I'm listening to a podcast on healthy eating. And
that's
really,
good,
yeah. So trying to do better, that way, and just the day-to-day grind can get to us, and that's my listen right now. Go to.
What movie could you watch over and over again? I'm going to do both of you on this one.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Oh, come on. That was so predictable.
Give me
all right. So my favorite is Gladiator. Anytime I see that one on, I'll stop, and it's good. Yeah,
that is a good one. I like that one.
Yeah,
I think that was actually one of Russell Crowe's better ones.
Yeah, it was definitely. Yeah.
Honestly, I'm one of those folks who loves to see a movie once because I get it and I got it and I'll refer to it. But I've seen, as shocking as it sounds, Inception a couple times because I wanted to see maybe that thimble at the very end. Maybe it did tip down. Maybe it did stay up. But it was a very mind-boggling, multi-dimensional thing, and I love when my brain is challenged. So I'd say Inception.
Okay. Couple more. Both of you again. What would you like to be remembered for? Other than bodybuilding.
Or coffee consumption.
Yeah.
I think that, my legacy, if my grandkids or great grandkids can look back and say, look, he made a difference by participating in the public process, the civics. We're in a really unique time at City Hall where folks, we want to fight. And so my thing is let's just calm the drama down. Let's just walk through things. So if someone would look back and say, that guy, he just kind of was I don't want to say boring, but just steady.
Steady Eddie.
Steady Eddie. Yeah, that would be okay.
Steady Brian.
Yeah, that's okay by me.
That's cool. Patrick?
As cliche as it sounds, I always have a lot of internal passion for helping people, passion for getting businesses off the ground. I mean, one of my favorite projects was a couple towns ago. We're talking about a $75 million development, and I handled the purchase and sale agreement, the parking license agreement, the entitlement, seeing it through permitting, and it was just and it's up and running now. It's a 212 unit building. I advocated and I stuck with it like a stubborn person that I am sometimes to get the ground floor retail going, and now there may be a restaurant going in that space. So it's just I had this inherent passion because I know what that end vision can look like, and I know how to get there. I hopefully it doesn't become overbearing, but my passion to help people and passion to get things done is definitely probably a legacy lever.
Good. This one's more, we're always trying to pay it forward as far as connections. And so this next question is kind of how do we help each other? And so what I mean by this, so just bear with me when I read this to you. What news sources or bits of information do you use to stay in touch with your involvement in kind of everything that we're talking about in the Mac and Bleu, in other words, building Arizona? And we like to do this so that other people know how to get either connections on network, information. Like a popular one is Phoenix Business Journal, but I use that as kind of just so with that as a catalyst, can either one of you speak to that?
Do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Honestly, gosh, I think LinkedIn is great. We're great partners with the Phoenix East Valley Partnership, which is 7 communities that join together to advance the East Valley of Phoenix. We're part of GPEC, so we follow their leads. We've got a lot of great community ones too. We have a brand new newsletter that hopefully I'm not taking your thunder on that one. We've got the chamber newsletter that we're very actively involved in. But the things that I follow are, like you just said, the Phoenix Business France Media's. We've got there's a lot of, I'm sorry, I'm stumbling. Maybe I need more caffeine. A lot of the France Media stuff, but I know that's just the developer economic development site, but I know there's more.
Yeah, so for me, it's Capital Times. I did think of Phoenix Business Journal.
It's
but
just
that's
an easy
kind of
one because
for
most
us,
of the people in our industry have some connection to affiliation to that. The reason we ask this is naturally the audience always wants to know, like, how do all of us interact? And every time we can offer up one more avenue, it could be digital, print. I mean, well, let's be honest, print's gone, but the digital version of print or those organizations, the groups, there's so much networking in this valley. But go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I was just going to think about it's so beneficial. I went to the ULI conference. I can't remember the exact one I went to.
Trends Day.
Trends Day. It was interactive.
Where was that at?
It was at Desert, up at the Marriott, north side of town.
Desert Ridge?
Desert Ridge. Yep.
Is that annual then? Because you're a ULI guy, right?
Yeah.
I attended a lot of ULI in Chicago. I'm not a member. And I was told I should go to this one, and I unfortunately was supposed to be out of town. That I wasn't out of town, but I'm glad you went. But it's a annual event. There's like 1,100 people in a room talking about Arizona, the trends, the construction prices, and it's a great, like you said, networking opportunity. He gave me a bunch of things from that thing that I'm still following up on.
And
I haven't been to that one in a few years, but I do remember it being very impactful.
Very, very innovative, progress, kind of thinking out where we're going to be heading. And then we have to work within our structures like MAG, Maricopa Association of Governments, thinking about air quality, thinking about the environment, thinking about transit, and those organizations that have actual authority to work with ADOT to do it. So it's kind of this combination of ideas, ULI, and at the same time bringing in that system of taxes and investment of those through MAG or through ADOT.
Can I tag on real quick?
No, you're done.
As a matter of fact, my apologies to Pinell Partnership. Pinell Partnership's another great one, and then that is in person. They have a lot of breakfasts throughout Pinell County. The Phoenix East Valley Partnership has a lot of great in-person events.
Can you, just because there's a lot more, a lot of what's on Mac and Blue has migrated more towards Pinell. Is that something that goes like between AJ, Florence, Coolidge? Like, is it rotational or how does that work?
Yeah, they travel, and I mean, it's just amazing to think our county, Pinell County, is the size of Connecticut, not California, Connecticut in terms of land area, and the majority of it is state-owned land and some agricultural land that may transcend into industrial and development. So they do travel throughout. I think we had a Pinell Partnership meeting in AJ in February. I think the next one's going to be in Casa Grande. So they do rotate, and there was a great growth summit that was hosted by Phoenix Business Journal in Casa Grande last week. So
yeah, I do remember that post. So. All right, well, thank you. One last one, and then we'll get you guys back to your job or the golf course or wherever you want to go, or the gym.
Yeah.
Okay, Instead of truth or dare, I'm picking truth. So you have to think a little bit beyond this. So what's your biggest fantasy? I mean, so take that previous question about, like, retirement, what you could do. Take this to the next level. Like, if there were no inhibitions, like, what would be that fantasy? Oh, man. Like being a man on the moon or something crazy.
Sounds super nerdy, but when I was in my hometown and there was like a $300 million lottery jackpot, I sat right next to our engineer, who was our engineer for 20 years, and I said, if I won the lottery, you have my word, I will give you $1 million to help rebuild the roads, because it was an unincorporated area. They did a televised thing, and the sewers were all bad. And again, this is Midwestern, rustic city, and this is my hometown. I love
where the potholes are called lakes.
Sure, but kudos to Dave Talbot. He retired, but I still thought to this day, I'm like, if I win the lottery over $100 million, I'm still giving $1 million to that town, because you know what, they did so much for me. All the industrial paid for my education. Their tax system is a little bit different, their property tax system, and I kind of always thought as a fantasy to pay it forward. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am without the Sloan Valves of the world, because they're headquartered out of Franklin Park, or the Warner Landers when they were there in Franklin Park, they moved out of state. But I just thought, kind of like what you said, that legacy, paying it forward, as dorky as that sounds, because I lived in that town, I worked in those, and I saw the televised, like, there's no sewers left. What are you going to do? And he's like, find money. And that was the fantasy I still remember from 11 years ago.
How about you, Brian?
So if ever, fantasy would be just a dream to get to meet like a celebrity like a Charles Barkley and play golf with him and let him know of the systems that are in place. So our budget is really small. It's really not a huge thing, but to get some kind of interest and industry of celebrities to come out and be interested would be a dream of our community, and to talk to Sir Charles or somebody that's so passionate about.
Love it.
Yeah, it would be a dream because he's about 10 years older than me, and watched him growing up, and seems to be a person that really appreciates where people come from and how they can grow over time.
This timing wise, I'm going to pre-qualify my statement here. Did you see him on 60 Minutes last night? Yeah.
And I watched that.
This won't, our recording here won't be released till after that, but
Yeah.
it'll be in context. Well, gentlemen, I can't thank you for enough for coming on. You've represented your community well, and I know there's more behind the team than just the two of you.
Absolutely.
But great news about Apache Junction. I'm glad you came in here and shared the stories. I think we've got another wonderful municipality within our greater Phoenix Valley that they can be proud, and you guys should be proud of what AJ stands for.
Yeah, thanks for having us. If you ever looking back for another municipality, I'll fill in. You let me know. No, we'd love to come back in a couple of years, hopefully, and give you guys some great follow-ups.
Good.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks again for watching Mac and Blue, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
You've been listening to the Mac and Blue Show, brought to you by Torrey Contracting and Blue Wave General Contracting. Be sure to subscribe to the Mac and Blue podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Follow Robert Johnson and JJ Levensky on LinkedIn and Instagram. Tune in live every first and third Thursday at 3 p.m. as we continue to introduce you to the people building Arizona. Walt Disney said, "You can dream, create, design, and build the most wonderful place in the world, but it requires people to make the dream a reality." Until next time, make it a great day.